Hello and welcome to this video. We're actually going to talk about realistic novel. But before I start, I want to introduce myself as someone who's new to novel, new to literature, and I'm super excited for this journey, to be honest. And before we start, you have to know something. When you are learning things of humanities, which is literature or maybe linguistics, history, culture, philosophy, art, whatever, you have to know that studying humanities or humanities studies, it is something so unique, so essential, so important for human beings. It came from the meaning human, so it is humanities. And studying humanities actually is interesting. You know why? Because you are studying yourself as a human being. So I think studying humanities, or it's not me actually, all the scientists say humanities is important. I'm not talking about majors at universities. I'm talking about being a human being, reading novels, learning about languages, learning sort of arts, knowing about cultures and histories. This is so important for you because it's a way that you express yourself as a human being in this world, exploring and learning and investigating inside yourself. It's not an introductory for the video, it's something that I'm saying from my heart to you guys. And I hope it touches your hearts too. And it gives you a very big image for what is literature. It's a part of humanities. It's not something that you do it just for college. It's something that you do it for yourself. If you respect yourself, you have to explore these different sciences and different disciplines and fields. And at the end of the day, the main core of humanities is human. This is so interesting. Now we're talking about literature, specifically novels, specifically realistic novel. And I'm actually interested in reading about them or reading about realistic novel. But there is a small note I want to actually remark before I start. First, which is my name is Yasmin, of course. Second, I'm not gonna, rush in the words and speak so fast. And I don't know, I'm feeling like when you are talking about literature, novel, poetry, humanities in general, you have to slow down. You have to give yourself a time to articulate and breathe, between the phrases and take your time to think. Because this is why we have the novel and philosophy and art and language. It's not Russian. The modern life made us in rush all the day. Capitalism made us just, toys that they're, working, we robots, we don't have minds, and we're trying just to rush in without thinking about anything, without exploring. And this is the missing part in the modern times. We don't have the time to even read about humanities, to read about ourselves. So, this is a very big thank you for humanities and for the old people that they can actually, or they left this beyond them, that we can read their treasures and learn about ourselves, even though we don't have the time to do it because of AI and the life and the modern life. That you have to be part of it. The perfect life online made us trying to be perfect in sort of areas and forget about ourselves, forget about our histories. and who we are. Maybe when you read novel, you may find the answer or you may not. But at least you try to know. At least you go and search and you know, you did that effort in order to get the answer out of all of this mess in this technology and AI that made us without minds. We're not even thinking about anything. Who now is trying to think about a philosophical think or trying to create a new theory about something that's related to humanities? Maybe we don't have because AI could do it. AI could explore for us. Maybe this presentation is done by I don't know. But we're human beings. We have to, you know, remember that we have minds. We can think and we can explore and we can write and we can express ourselves without AI. Even if you use it, you have to know that reading is important, especially reading from the past. And I'm learning with you. I'm not, a teacher. I'm not someone who's above you or better than you. I'm still learning here. And even this video is for me before you guys. So I think this introductory was so important before we start. But now we're actually ready to start the journey of learning about realistic novel. And by the way, the past 6 minutes of this video was actually from my heart. I didn't use AI. I didn't use, you know, prompt or script from AI. This is from my heart. And I hope you feel it. And maybe you started to think in a different way. I hope so. Now it's time for realistic novel. So, realistic novel basically is a movement, a way that you are exploring novel from it, a way that writers started to think differently and write differently and express differently. All of these things that we're gonna learn about realistic novels. So, the question here is when was actually the first spark of the realistic novels? It was in 19th century. You know, that time was so important in the world in general. Industrial revolutions and those things, and life started to change, and new innovations and new life for the people and human beings, which is even affects the nowadays present. So let's get started with our mind map for this video and for this presentation. The start and the kickoff is with definition, of course, and then the main types, famous authors, main themes, narrative techniques, and features, and the end of the presentation. So grab your coffee maybe or something, and let's get started. Okay, the thing that I like about realism, or the big titles, that it even express itself. You don't have to go and Google it in order to know what is realism, because it is telling you, I am realism. I'm expressing the real life. I'm showing the real life in books, in writings, in all these things, because I'm the realism. So, as it's written here in front of you guys on the screen, realism is a movement of art and literature that represents reality, of course, by portraying mundane, everyday experiences, and they are in real life. So, as you know from the title or from the big, head, which is realism, that it is a movement of art, and it actually like a transparent way of expressing how the people used to live, the things that they used to do every day, and maybe the problems in the society, different things and themes that you could maybe call it realism. And this is for the definition. Now we're going to talk about the history of realism in England. So, realism in England literature emerged or started during the which is middle 19th century Victorian era. So, the Victorian era, 19th century, there is something new that, emerged and appeared, which is called realism. So, it's a movement. As writers, so to portray life truthfully, not a fake life, not an imaginary life, but truthfully life or a truthful life. And focus on the ordinary experiences of everyday people rather than romantic ideas. And here's the thing, the difference between realism and romantic ideas is so fascinating. And I'm not a type of people that are biased to specific type of art or movements. I think every time or each time of different ages has its own way of expressing, and writers and novels or whatever you call it. So there's nothing's good and bad. You cannot say romantic or romanticism was a bad thing, because it was more about love, beauty, nature, things that are imaginary, things that are not really, or you could say not related to the real life. So that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Okay? So I want you to know this to be clear for you. Nothing is bad and good about art, because everybody has their own way to express. So you have to respect this. So at the time when there was the romanticism, the writers felt the best way to express themselves was by using the romantic way. Okay? By using the beauty and imaginary, escaping from reality was a thing of the romantic ideas. To escape from the reality. Maybe it was helping. Maybe it was good for the people. Maybe that was the best thing for them to do. Yes, of course. But then when we have the new thing that emerged and started, which is realism, it was the opposite. Because realism is not escaping from reality. It is showing the reality. It is, copying the reality in the books. By the writer's pen, he's starting to illustrate the reality in a good way, that you could feel it and touch it when you are reading the novel. So this is the difference between romantic and realism. And we have here an example of realism, and it's a clear example, which is George Eliot's The Mill of the Floss, 1860. It's a good example of this. And let's go to the second slide. Now we're going to talk about types of realistic novels, and I'm super excited to know about it. What do you think? So the first one is social realism. And from the title, you could actually guess that it's related to the people, the society, maybe social problems. I don't know. Let's read the definition. So, social realism basically is social realism that talks about real problems in society. Okay, that's cool actually. To talk about problems, that was something new, by the way. Maybe because you know about Dickens and you know about those writers, and now, now we are in 21st century, it's a big gap Maybe you think that, okay, this is so normal. What is the point about it? But at that time, it was something new. So you have to feel this feeling. Imagine from the romanticism to the realism, it's a big, step in milestone, as they say. It's something different that people started to see and live. And, you know, when you are at a point that you are escaping from the reality to a point that you can read a book that talks about the social problems, that's a different thing. That's a different perspective of art and writing. Okay, so writing in that way is something new. I imagine myself at 19th century reading a book for Dickens or any one of the pioneer writers that it's talking about maybe poverty or talking about social problems or whatever, how I'm gonna feel and express or react to something like that. Maybe I would feel so good because it's something new. Imagine if there's something new that's called television and television is telling you what is going on in the world. How you're gonna feel? You're gonna feel so good because it's telling you what is actually happening. It's not a fake thing. It's not a fake thought. It's not escaping from the reality. So we've got here an example of social, you know, realism, which is Hard Times by the pioneer, the greatest writer of that time, and even to this time, Charles Dickens. Then we have the psychological realism, which talks about the mind and feelings, and it's in a way that actually link and connect psychology with novel. Impressive, right? Yes. So it's actually it's or it talks about mind, something that's related to psychology, and the feelings maybe that you are expressing and you are, facing and living, which is more about realism. And we have here a great example for the great writer, which is, she's a girl, by the way, or she's a woman. She is George Eliot. And it's weird to say George as a girl, but I will tell you just in, a couple of minutes who's she. And her writing is called Middlemarch. Then the second type that we have here, or the third maybe, is regional realism. It talks about life in one specific place. Maybe, for example, London. Maybe we're talking about London and the problems in London and the factories and whatever. So it's a specific place that we're talking about in or from the scope of reality. This is something actually great. We have here an example for Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is so actually interesting. And we also have something called critical realism. It shows real life, but also talks about social problems. We have the realism in characters, and it means showing people who feel real in nature. This point is so important. You know why? Because this is so good for the reader. When the writer is showing a character who is a normal person, he's not a hero, he's not perfect, he's just a normal person. How are you gonna feel when you are reading about characters who are like you and me, and you can feel so there is a relation between you and them. Okay, so it's so amazing when you are reading something. It's not too much, as we say. It's not too much perfection, too much characteristics that you as a human being in the real life, you don't have it. Too much powers, and the writers, when they want to show a hero, they start to, or a heroine, they start to make it so perfect that you even cannot imagine that could happen even 20% of a human being in the world. So this is actually good for the people. It's a new perspective for you as a reader when you are reading a normal people's life. stories, novels. It's not something so perfect. There is good and bad. And I love how the writers are so smart at that time that they even try to illustrate them and portray them in a way that they're not perfect. They have the maybe the sins and the mistakes, and they're humans, and they also have the good sides and the kind sides. So this is actually a way of realism, isn't it? Okay, we have also realism in daily life, which is the main thing. Shows real and simple parts of people's life or people's everyday lives. Yes, for example, work, schooling, maybe at that time, maybe, or I could say like the way they used to educate themselves, poverty, whatever. There are too many things. Maybe the way of person who's going to the factory to work. He's describing how he goes there. Maybe he take a train or something. Maybe. So now we're talking. We're gonna talk about three great English novelists. Of course, of course, of course, of course. We've got here Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was one of the greatest English novelists of the 19th or 19th century. Until this point, we are reading for Charles Dickens. The most famous work that he actually has done was Great Expectations. We have here the female, which or who are who is Charlotte Bronte. Bronte was an English novelist known for exploring strong emotions, independence, and the challenges, the challenges faced women or faced by women in society. At that time, women was not that important thing. I know that this is so funny to say, but yes, especially for writing. It was so hard for a woman to be a writer, not because they were, I'm sorry, idiots. I'm sorry to say this, but because society was not, you know, um, accepting the the presence of females in general. So when there is writer who is a woman, it's something weird. And something is not acceptable at all. So she was facing the society. We could say this. George Eliot. And as I told you previously, she's a girl. She's a woman, yes. So the question here, why she's called George? Yes, it's a fake name. She used this male name, which is not her name, of course, in order to have the ability to be a writer in that type of society. Because if she did not maybe do that, she wouldn't be a writer, or there wouldn't be someone who read for her. Okay, so that was the only way that she could express herself, and the only way that she can be a part of the writing cycle or circle, I mean. So she chose to use a male name, which shows you how the society at that time was so masculine, and they didn't even recognize women. Okay, one of the famous works for her was Middlemarch. And she was known for her deep psychological insights that you can actually feel it when you read for her, even, random quotes as what we're gonna do now. She's so deep, especially the psychological perspectives and insights and, realistic depictions of society or depiction. It's like portrayal of the society or describing the society in other ways. This is George Eliot. Now we are hitting to the common themes or the most common themes in realism. What is theme? This is so important to remember. Theme means the main idea, or I personally like to call it the message, that a story explores about life, people, or society. It shows what the author wants the readers to understand or feel. Yes, the writer starts to write the message beyond the text. It's embedded in the text. It's not something that you can, find it easily. You have to read in order to understand the theme. But once the message is received by the reader, the writer feels that he has done his work. Now he's actually satisfied about what he has done. So, this is in a general way that we could say what is a theme. We have here as a very interesting mind map, and it shows the themes in general. We have social class and inequality, family and domestic life, industrialization and urban life, and also individual identity and self discovery. We've got also social institutions and power, morality and hypocrisy. Okay, let's start with the first theme here, which is struggle for identity. The definition is this theme focuses on how characters try to understand who they are. You have to underline this. Who they are. They actually, or they used to explore themselves. So, who they are in a changing society. We're talking about industrial revolution, new inventions. The life is in a new clothes and it's different. Okay? From the manscraft to the factories, it's a different lifestyle. So you as a person at that time, of course, you don't know who you are. What is your identity? So it was a way that you are trying to know who you are. It's something that it's not weird to read about. This is normal. Even us, when there is maybe an AI tool that is, dominant and now everybody use it and it may, maybe it is something like revolutionizing in the world. So you start to say, what is that? Is it gonna affect my life in a good or bad way? And this is so normal. You guys have to know life is not a static thing. It's something that is, dynamic. There are changements all the time. And we can see this with technology and different things, how the life is changing and improving. Maybe you would say improving, or maybe you don't see these changements as it's a good thing. Maybe it's your opinion, okay? But I'm talking about that it's not a static thing. It's so dynamic, it's so changing, it's flexible. So at that time, 19th century, people started to search for themselves, for their identities. We have here a quote from Jan Eyre, Bronte: I am no bird, and no net concerns me. I'm a free human being with an independent will. Wow. So Bronte, in that quote, or in this novel, she actually showing how she's expressing her identity. She's free. She's free. This is how she expresses and name her identity. The second the second theme here is marriage and family. This theme examines how social, emotional, and economic factors affect marriage and family life. The quote here is from Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen, of course, this is so, or it is a common novel. The quote says, "Happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance." Wow. Okay. It's just no one can know if 100% their marriage are going to be perfect because nothing is perfect, of course. But if it's going to be happy or not, as Jan, of course, say, it's something that you could not know. Human suffering and compassion, the definition says realistic novels frequently portray human pain, empathy, and the search for kindness in a harsh world. Wow, this is so amazing. Human suffering. And I want you to tell me a time that the human beings didn't suffer in any time, because this is a part of the life. And despite the suffer, you have to, you know, search for kindness. Search for it. No other options in order to be, alive is by searching for kindness. I actually love this quote from Ilot that says, "The kindness of strangers has been my only comfort." Wow. So amazing. And who doesn't love the kindness? We all need it in the life. Social class and inequality. The definition, this theme reveals the division between social classes and how industrial society, unfortunately, creates poverty and unfairness. The industrial society was one of the reasons of poverty and unfairness. So you're going to find small group of people in the society who are so rich. They have all the money that you can imagine. And too many people in the other place cannot find a loaf of bread. So sad and so hard, and it actually breaks the heart. So here we have the quote. It's a general quote. It's not related to social class, but it's actually from Hard Times, and it says facts alone are wanted in life. Not all the time we want to, read imaginary things, or maybe facts, or of course 100% are needed and wanted in life. Okay. Moral choices and consequences. That definition is realism explores moral dilemmas or issues, showing how people must face the results of their choice. The quote says, "Happiness was but the occasional episode in a general drama of pain." Wow. This is the way here, that novel, The Mayor of Castor Bridge, is talking that happiness, it's not something, permanent. Okay? It is something like, as they say, here the quote, it's occasional. It's not your daily life that every day is a happy day. No, this is not realism. No, no, no. We're talking about realism. Be real, be transparent. This is not a part of life. Instead, life is like a general drama of pain. This is how it's here in the novel. It's not my definition, of course, or it's not my quotes, but I'm just trying to, you know, explain it for you. But it's a good way, and it's one of the opinions of life and happiness. Reality of everyday life. Definition: realism focuses on ordinary life, portraying real people, daily struggles, and personal emotions. We here have this quote: if we had a keen vision of all that is ordinary, it would be like hearing the grass grow. And this is a new perspective. We're talking about realism, and we're saying like describing and trying to know every single, detail about the real life is not a good thing, by the way. If you're trying to know every single detail in your life and you're trying to, you know, focus on all of these things, this is actually something that it's not good. And as it's written here in the quote or the quote, it's like hearing the grass grow. Imagine that you can't hear the grass when it's growing. It's so, exhausting. It would make you exhausted because this is not a good thing. So sometimes when you are not focusing on all the details, it's a good thing. This is written in middle March. Now we're gonna talk about narrative techniques, and the first one is detailed descriptions, using specific everyday details to create a vivid and believable setting. So the writers at that time, they tried to make it so, so related to that reality and everyday life. So in order to do this, they used to describe in a detailed way everything, maybe the setting, the street, the house, the people, whatever. So when you have all this illustrated image as a reader in your mind, because you have a lot of details, you're going to illustrate it in your mind and you will feel it is relatable for you. Okay? The second one is complex characters, showing realistic characters with strength, flow, and emotional growth. Next, we have logical plots, focusing on events that could happen in real life, dealing with social and personal issues. We have natural dialogues, writing conversations that sound like real speech, full of emotion and small imperfections. This is so amazing. Imagine you're reading a conversation and it's similar to your language and your maybe it's also likely your everyday situations and all these things. How you're gonna feel? Of course, it's a good way to express realism. Now it's the features time. So mimes, it meant or means imitation of real life. Realist writers show life as it really is, without fantasy or exaggeration. Okay, so it actually means to be extra, to be too much. Okay. The second one is very similar. Oh, this is a hard word. I'm gonna pronounce it with you guys. Very similar, and this is what tied. I think it's a wrong pronunciation, but no problem. I'm not gonna cut it from the video. Okay. Okay. This hard word, okay, means the sense of reality. Writers make readers feel that the story could really happen. It's a hard word, now we're actually learn about realism. So, of course, there are sort of words that are not easy at all, but this is normal. And this is a way that the writers use to make the reader feel okay, that story actually feels that it could happen in real life. Order, ordinary characters, it means realism focuses on normal people, not heroes or kings. Everyday life, it shows daily experiences like work, marriage, and social problems. Social problems, which is, the same, realist writers discuss issues such as poverty, class conflict, and injustice. Simple language. This is a good one. Yes, they used to use a very simple language. And it meant to be clear, natural language like people, like what people use in real life. We also have detailed description. Writers describe places, people, and emotions in detail to make the story realistic. Objective narration. The narrator stays neutral and lets reader judge for themselves. It's a good one. Focus on common people. Realism gives attention to middle and lower classes and their real struggles. This is why people actually love those types of novels. Okay, I think this is the end of our presentation. I hope you guys love it, like it. Of course, we provided a really good mind map. Actually, thank you and shout out for Arwa because she done all of that great work, and all the teams because they actually done the research and they collect the material. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope you like it and benefit from this. It was Yasmin with you, and this is the novel, and this is the literature, and thank you.